Ethan Caldwell wasn't just the CEO of a grocery chain. He was the man who had built it from scratch. Years ago, armed with nothing but grit and a vision, he had opened a single small store on the outskirts of town. It had been humble, yet full of heart. Word spread, business boomed, and over the years that one store became 12, each a reflection of his original mission. Treat customers like family, especially those who needed kindness most. But lately, something didn't sit right. He had been getting reports, more than usual. Complaints were flooding in about long wait times, dismissive staff, and worst of all, whispers that elderly customers were being mocked or mistreated. Ethan trusted his team, but the numbers didn't lie. And yet, spreadsheets and HR summaries never captured the truth on the floor. He needed to feel it for himself, to see it with his own eyes. So he did something drastic. He transformed. Gone was the sharp, clean-shaven executive with tailored suits and polished shoes. In his place stood Erica, a quiet, nondescript man in khakis and a wrinkled polo. He wore thick framed glasses and let his beard grow into a rough stubble. His name tag, clipped crookedly to his shirt, bore a name that wasn't his. Most of his employees had never met the CEO in person, so blending in was easy. He chose the store that had the worst performance metrics, a mid-sized location in a quiet suburban neighborhood. It was managed by Rick, a longtime employee whose reputation had soured in recent months. Complaints about his behavior had escalated, but Ethan needed to know if the issue ran deeper than a few bad attitudes. On his first day, he was greeted by Lisa, the assistant manager. She looked like she carried the weight of the store on her shoulders. Tired eyes, a tight-lipped smile, but a kind demeanor. As she guided him through the store, pointing out the quirks of the old registers and the layout, she paused and gave him a subtle warning. If Rick says something, just ignore him. Her voice dropped at the mention of his name. That alone was enough to stir unease in Ethan's gut. Throughout the morning, Ethan manned the register. Most customers were patient, though some grumbled under their breath. But what truly unsettled him wasn't the shoppers. It was the atmosphere among the employees. They moved like they were under constant surveillance. Their eyes flickered nervously toward Rick's office door, like it was the lion's den. Then the door creaked open. Rick appeared, a heavy-set man with a perpetual scowl carved into his face. His walk was more of a stomp, heavy and full of purpose. He marched to the registers and loomed behind Ethan like a storm cloud. That's when she arrived. An elderly woman, hunched slightly, walked up with a modest basket of groceries. Her movements were careful and deliberate, each item placed on the belt like it might break. Rick sighed, loudly. "Here we go again," he muttered with exaggerated disdain. Ethan froze. His chest tightened. "Everything okay?" he asked, hoping it was just a misstep. Rick rolled his eyes and said, loud enough for the woman to hear, "These old folks take forever. They count their pennies, ask the dumbest questions, and hold up the whole line. I swear they should have their own damn store." The woman's hands trembled as she clutched her purse, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "I'm sorry," she murmured softly. "I just need a moment." Rick responded with a saccharine smile, voice dripping with mock sincerity. "Take your time, ma'am," he said, then, under his breath, added, "Not like anyone else has places to be." Ethan's jaw clenched so tightly it ached. Every fiber of his being screamed to call Rick out on the spot, but he forced himself to breathe, to observe. Lisa, who had been stocking shelves nearby, met Ethan's eyes with a quiet apology written across her face, but she said nothing. Ethan finished ringing up the woman's items, gently and with care. "There's no rush, ma'am," he said softly, offering a reassuring smile. She looked at him, eyes wet with gratitude, and slowly walked away. Rick scoffed. "You'll learn, kid," he said, shaking his head. "These seniors? Waste of time." They barely spend anything and they slow everything down. Ethan stood there, his hands gripping the register like a lifeline. The air around him buzzed with disbelief and anger. Was this how his company treated people when he wasn't watching? How many times had this happened? How many vulnerable people had walked away feeling small, belittled, humiliated? He stayed silent for now. As the shift continued, Ethan paid close attention. The problem wasn't laziness, it was fear. The cashiers jumped when Rick walked by. The stock clerks moved with robotic precision, avoiding eye contact. Lisa, despite her exhaustion, seemed to carry the store alone. And then, Ethan noticed the schedules pinned to the break room wall. There was a pattern, one that told a quieter, darker story. The most grueling, inconsistent shifts were given to a specific group: the older employees, the quiet ones, the ones who didn't laugh at Rick's jokes. It was subtle, but intentional. A storm had been brewing inside Ethan all day. Now it was beginning to roar. He came in hoping to find a few answers. What he found instead was a culture of fear, one that had taken root while he was busy looking at numbers instead of people. And he wasn't going to let it stay that way. And then there was Lisa. She was the beating heart of the store, the one who never stopped moving, never stopped giving. From covering shifts for absent workers to calming upset customers, to restocking shelves in the quiet moments between crises, Lisa did it all. Ethan had been watching her, and each time she rubbed her temples or paused to catch her breath, he felt a knot tighten in his chest. She passed Rick's office one afternoon, moving briskly to deal with a spill. Rick's voice shot out like a whip. "Lisa, what the hell are you doing?" She stopped mid-step, startled. I was just—" "You're not paid to run around like a damned headless chicken," Rick snapped. "You're paid to manage, so manage. And don't come crying to me about being tired." Her face didn't flinch, but her eyes dimmed. She simply nodded, lips pressed into a hard line, and walked away. Moments later, she was on her knees with a mop, scrubbing up milk from the dairy aisle floor. Her dignity pooled around her. Ethan's heart burned, but he still needed to understand the full extent of what this culture had become before he made his move. During break, he sat quietly in the employee lounge, pretending to scroll through his phone. The room was hushed, voices muffled like secrets in a confessional. Two cashiers sat at the table across from him, speaking in low tones. "Can't keep doing this," one whispered. "Rick cut my hours again. Meanwhile, his buddies get full shifts." "Yeah," the other sighed. "And did you hear what he told Mrs. Thompson? Told her to shop online instead of wasting space. She's been coming here for decades." Ethan's grip tightened around his coffee cup. He looked over at Lisa, sitting alone at the far end of the room. Her hands cradled her mug like it held more than caffeine, like it held the last scraps of her strength. She looked drained, not just physically, but soul-deep. The way someone looks when they've been holding everything together for too long, with no one to hold them up in return. Then Rick entered the room. The mood shattered. Conversations died mid-sentence. People stiffened, suddenly busying themselves with their phones or their shoelaces. Rick smirked like he owned the air in the room. He walked to the fridge, grabbed a soda, and turned toward Lisa. "By the way," he said flippantly, "I need you to cover tomorrow morning. Greg's out." Lisa blinked. "But I already opened today, and I'm scheduled to close." Rick cracked open his drink. "Not my problem. Figure it out." He strolled out as if nothing had happened, leaving behind a silence so heavy it suffocated. That night, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't just a management issue. It was a breach of everything he believed in, of the foundation he'd poured his life into. A company built on compassion, now running on fear. He wasn't going back tomorrow to blend in. He was going back to make things right. The next morning, Ethan arrived early, dressed again as Eric, but this time he carried more than a name tag. He carried purpose. The resolve in his chest was steel. Rick was already on the floor, barking orders at a stock boy who looked barely out of high school. Lisa, behind the register, looked like she hadn't slept. Ethan walked past them both and straight into the manager's office, uninvited. Rick looked up, startled. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he growled. Ethan shut the door behind him. "We need to talk." "You don't just walk into my office, kid," Rick barked. "Get back to your register before I write you up." Ethan didn't flinch. He calmly removed his glasses and unclipped his name tag. He placed both gently on Rick's desk. "I'm Ethan Caldwell," he said quietly. "I own this company." The blood drained from Rick's face. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm but sharp enough to cut glass. "I've spent the last 2 days in this store, watching how you run things, and I have to tell you, I'm disgusted." Rick fumbled for footing. "Sir, Save it," Ethan snapped. "I've heard how you talk to customers. I've watched how you treat your staff. You humiliate elderly shoppers. You punish employees who don't kiss up to you. You dump everything on Lisa while doing next to nothing yourself. You've created a place where people are afraid to breathe around you, and that's not leadership. That's abuse." Rick's jaw tightened. "With all due respect, you don't know what it's like to manage this place day to day. I do what I have to do to keep things moving." Ethan's eyes narrowed, fire burning behind them. "You think belittling people is how you keep things moving? No. What you're doing is breaking them." Rick leaned back, trying to reclaim control. "These employees should be grateful they have jobs. If they can't handle it, they can leave. Simple as that." Ethan said, voice low and cold, "is exactly the problem. You think this is about control. It's not. It's about dignity, and I will not allow someone like you to represent my company." Rick's bravado faltered. "You can't just fire me." "Yes," Ethan said, leaning in. "I can, and I just did." Rick's face turned crimson. "You're making a mistake. Do you have any idea how hard it is to find people willing to run a place like this?" Ethan didn't blink. "I'd rather have no manager than one who poisons my people. Get your things. You're done." Rick stood there, fists clenched, rage simmering. But one look at Ethan told him there would be no appeal. Muttering curses under his breath, he grabbed his coat and stormed out of the office. Ethan followed, stepping into the main floor just behind him. The employees looked up from their stations, their confusion morphing into shock as Rick stomped toward the exit. Lisa, still at the register, froze. Her hands clutched the counter like it was the only thing anchoring her to the world. Rick paused at the door. He turned, but what he said or what happened next is a moment we'll pick up in the next scene. "Good luck without me," Rick sneered, pausing at the exit. "This place is a mess. You'll see." And just like that, he was gone. The air hung thick with silence, like the moment after a thunderclap. Employees exchanged nervous glances, some unsure whether to feel relieved or worried. The man who had dictated their every move for so long had vanished. But now what? Ethan stepped forward, calm but resolute. "I know this is a shock," he began, his voice steady. "But let me be very clear. This store is not a mess. You've all been doing your jobs under unacceptable leadership, and that changes today." Lisa blinked, her brows knitting together. "Wait, who are you?" Ethan turned toward her. "Ethan Caldwell. I'm the founder and owner of this company. I've been working here undercover to see what's really going on." Gasps rippled across the room like a wave. Murmurs spread among the cashiers. Lisa's mouth opened slightly, then closed, the realization slowly dawning. "You were The new guy? Ethan nodded, and I saw everything. I watched how you all kept the store going while being dismissed and mistreated, how customers, especially our most vulnerable ones, were spoken to without an ounce of respect. That ends now. The young stock clerk lifted his hand hesitantly. Does that mean things are actually going to change? Ethan met his eyes directly. Yes, starting today. He turned back to Lisa, lowering his voice just enough for only her to hear. I need to talk to you in the office. Lisa hesitated, tense, unsure of what this meant, but she nodded and followed. Inside the office, she sat stiffly, still shell-shocked. Ethan took the seat across from her and leaned forward, his tone softer now. I've seen how hard you work, how you've practically run this store without the title or the credit. That's going to change. I want you to take over as interim store manager. Her eyes widened. Me? You're the only person here who actually gives a damn about this place, he said. You've already been doing the work. Now I'm giving you the authority to do it for real. Her hands trembled. I don't know if I can. You already have been, Ethan said gently. You just didn't have the power to make it official. Now you do. She breathed in slowly, letting the words settle into her bones. Then she nodded. Okay, good. Ethan stood. Let's go fix this store. Back on the floor, the energy was still cautious, uncertain. But when Ethan clapped his hands and called everyone together, they gathered. Listen up, he said. Rick is gone. Lisa is your new manager. And starting today, we're making some real changes. He pointed to the cashiers. Schedules will be fair, no more favoritism. He turned to the stock clerks. Breaks will be respected, no more endless shifts. Then he looked at everyone. And most importantly, respect is not optional, not for customers, not for each other. This store moves forward with dignity. The room remained quiet, the tension still thick with years of mistrust. Ethan softened. I know change doesn't come easy. I know some of you are wondering if this is just more talk. But I'm here, I'm listening, and I'm not leaving you to figure this out alone. One cashier nodded slowly, then another. Lisa straightened her shoulders. You heard him. Let's get back to work. For the first time since Ethan arrived, the atmosphere shifted. The weight of fear began to lift. Employees returned to their stations, not out of obligation, but with purpose. That day, Ethan didn't just observe. He helped. He stocked shelves. He bagged groceries. He encouraged, but more importantly, he let Lisa lead. By midday, he called a meeting in the break room. Employees filtered in cautiously, unsure what to expect. Lisa stood beside him now, not nervously, but with a quiet strength. I know it's been rough, Ethan began. And I know some of you doubt that things will really be different. I don't blame you. But I didn't fire Rick as a gesture. I did it because it was necessary. And I need your help to make sure this doesn't happen again. Silence lingered until a young cashier raised her hand. We've heard that before, and nothing ever changes. Ethan nodded. I get it. Words are easy. Action is harder. But this isn't just for show. I'll be back regularly. I'll hold Lisa accountable, and I expect you all to hold me accountable too. The stock clerk spoke next, arms crossed. Why did it take you this long to notice? Ethan didn't flinch. Because I made the mistake of trusting spreadsheets and reports instead of real people. I lost touch. That won't happen again. The employee studied him, then gave a small nod. Lisa stepped forward. I know I was just the assistant manager before, and maybe I didn't have the authority to fix things, but I promise you, I'm going to fight for this store and for every single one of you. A spark of hope lit in the room. Ethan smiled gently. Here's what's happening immediately. First, schedule reviews. Fair and balanced. Second, real breaks. Third, I'm bringing in a regional support team to help Lisa stabilize the transition. An older cashier raised her hand. And the customers, especially the seniors? They will be treated with respect, Ethan said firmly. A wave of quiet applause followed, not loud, not triumphant, but sincere, a signal that belief was returning. After the meeting, Ethan stayed on the floor, speaking one-on-one with employees. He took notes, he asked questions. Most importantly, he listened. He heard about the broken register that had been ignored for months, the outdated scheduling system, the absence of feedback from upper management. Small things, but they mattered. By closing time, the store felt different. Employees moved with new energy, customers were greeted with warmth. Lisa walked the aisles like she'd been in charge her whole life. As Ethan locked up beside her, he smiled. "You did good today." Lisa exhaled. "It still doesn't feel real." "You've earned it," he said simply. Then with a smirk, "Think you can manage without me breathing down your neck?" She smiled. "I think I'll be okay." He nodded. "Good. I'll be back regularly. No more running this company from a distance." She reached out her hand. "Then I guess we've got a deal, boss." He shook it firmly. As he walked to his car, he turned and looked back at the store. It still needed work. It wasn't perfect, but for the first time in a long while, it felt right. And Ethan Caldwell made a silent promise to himself. This time, he wouldn't let it fall apart. The next morning, before returning to corporate, he made an unannounced visit to another store, one with high ratings and strong morale. He needed to see the contrast. What he found would shape the future of his entire company. The moment Ethan stepped into the next store, the difference was palpable. Shelves were fully stocked, the lighting was bright, welcoming, but more importantly, the energy was different, calm, purposeful, and proud. Employees weren't just working, they were engaged, smiling, interacting with customers like people they genuinely wanted to serve. At one register, a young man with an effortless grin was helping an elderly woman count her change. "Take your time, ma'am, no rush at all," he said with warmth and patience. Ethan paused. Something in that moment struck a deep chord within him. This was the heartbeat of his original dream. Not just groceries on a shelf, but human connection, dignity, service. His vision alive and well. Carla, the store manager, was moving with confidence across the floor. She wasn't locked away in an office. She was checking on displays, helping stock shelves, chatting with employees, even offering a smile to each passing customer. She was everywhere, not by force, but by choice. She led by presence. "Carla," Ethan said, stepping forward and offering his hand. She turned, startled, for only a second before recovering with a grin. "Mr. Caldwell, didn't expect to see you here today." "That's the point," Ethan replied with a small smile. "I needed to see, firsthand, what a healthy store in my chain actually looks like." Carla chuckled. "Well, I hope we're living up to the hype." Ethan scanned the room. "From where I stand, you're exceeding it. But I need to understand what makes this place work. What are you doing differently?" Carla didn't hesitate. "Trust," she said plainly. "I trust my team to do their jobs, and they trust me to support them. We handle problems together. If someone's struggling, we help, not punish. And as for our customers, we don't see them as numbers. We see them as neighbors." Ethan nodded slowly, absorbing every word. That's exactly what was missing at the other store. "Which one?" "The one Rick was running." Carla's expression darkened. "Ah, him. I've heard stories. Never worked with him directly, but I know his kind. Power hungry, Thinks fear equals efficiency. Ethan exhaled, nodding. He's gone now. Good, she said, folding her arms. But I'm guessing the damage is still there? Yes, Ethan admitted. Lisa, Rick's assistant, has taken over. She's capable, but she's been emotionally worn down by his leadership. She needs help. Carla didn't miss a beat. Then give it to her. Partner her with someone who knows what good leadership looks like. Someone who can help her rebuild, not take over. Ethan's mind was already racing. Would you be willing to do that? Carla arched a brow. Me? You run one of the best stores in this company, Ethan said sincerely. You've created a culture we need to replicate. I want you to mentor her. Check in once a week, help her get her bearings, pass on what's working here. Carla leaned on the counter, thinking. I don't want to undermine her. You won't, Ethan assured. She doesn't need someone to take control, just someone to believe in her until she believes in herself. After a long beat, Carla nodded. All right, I'll do it. Ethan extended his hand again. Thank you. She took it firmly. Just make sure this isn't a one-time fix, Mr. Caldwell. If one store fell apart on your watch, chances are others are suffering too. Ethan met her eyes. I know. That's why I'm not stopping here. Later that morning, back at headquarters, Ethan didn't go to his office. He went straight to the conference room and called an emergency meeting with all district managers. When they arrived, some were curious, others looked cautious. Ethan stood at the front, both hands resting on the table. Let's get to the point, he began. I went undercover at one of our stores this week. What I saw was unacceptable. A ripple of murmurs swept through the room. Greg, a senior manager, leaned forward. Which store? The one Rick was running, Ethan said sharply. Greg exhaled. I had concerns, but his numbers always checked out. That's the problem, Ethan replied. We've been measuring the wrong things. Sales numbers don't show you the fear in employees' eyes. They don't reveal if customers are being mistreated or ignored. And they certainly don't capture the damage of toxic leadership. Another manager, Denise, furrowed her brow. What exactly did you see? Ethan didn't sugarcoat it. He told them everything, from Rick's cruelty toward elderly customers to Lisa's emotional exhaustion to the entire team operating under a cloud of fear. By the time he finished, the room was dead silent. Denise finally whispered. That's worse than I imagined. Greg rubbed his temples. We should have caught it. Yes, Ethan said quietly. We should have. And we won't let this happen again. He turned to the projector, clicking through a new policy framework. Effective immediately, we're changing how store performance is measured. Sales are just one part. Employee satisfaction, customer feedback, and leadership quality now weigh equally. He advanced to the next slide. Each store will receive quarterly anonymous employee surveys. If leadership complaints stack up, we investigate. No exceptions. Next slide. Starting next month, I'll be visiting stores in each district, unannounced. Not as CEO, as a customer. Greg sat back. You're really serious about this? Ethan met his gaze. Dead serious. I started this company to serve people. That includes the ones wearing our uniforms. If we lose that, we don't deserve success. Denise nodded. Then let's do it. No one objected. When the meeting ended, Ethan walked out feeling something he hadn't in years. Not control through fear, but clarity through purpose. That evening, as he left the office, his phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. First full day without Rick. It feels different. In a good way. Staff is still adjusting, but we're getting there. Thanks for believing in me. Ethan smiled. He typed back. Keep going. You're not alone in this. As he pocketed the phone and walked into the twilight, he knew this journey wasn't just about fixing one broken store. It was about rebuilding a foundation, one built not on fear or numbers, but on people. And this time he would make sure it lasted.